Border security, that is the main issue of contention as the U.S. government shutdown enters its second week this morning, with the lives and paychecks of some 800,000 federal workers hanging in the balance.
It is day 8 of the funding showdown, and there is no end in sight. ABC's White House correspondent Tara Palmieri is at the White House with the latest on negotiations and what it all means for those families affected. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning, Eva. President Trump is staying here in Washington instead of spending New Year's at his Palm Beach resort. But the negotiations have broken down. Neither side is even talking to each other at this point, and the president's chief of staff says they're in it for the long haul. It's day 8 of the government shutdown, and neither side is willing to budge. Negotiations to reopen the government at a standstill with no end in sight before the new year.
Discussions have broken down. We do expect this to go on for a while.
The deadlock over the president's demand for a border wall. Democrats refusing to pass a bill that includes funding for one of Trump's main campaign promises.
I guarantee you, folks, that Mexico is going to pay for the wall.
And the president now raising the stakes, tweeting, quote, "We will be forced to close the southern border entirely if the obstructionist Democrats do not give us the money to finish the wall." Incoming Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying the House's first vote as the majority on January 3rd will be to reopen the government. The president's chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, explaining how last week's negotiations went awry.
Saturday afternoon, we sat down with Mr. Schumer and gave him a number below 5. Last night, they called us and said that they weren't even going to counter that.
But economic analysts say that closing off the border could result in billions of dollars in damage to the U.S. economy, depending on the duration. The political showdown pinching 800,000 federal workers over the holidays, some working without pay and others furloughed. Several national parks are not being staffed, and Smithsonian museums will close their doors on January 2nd. The Coast Guard's 42,000 members receiving word Friday they will receive their final paychecks of the year on Monday. Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is currently in El Paso, Texas. Last night, she visited detention centers in the border cities. 2 children have died in U.S. custody this month. Today, Nielsen heads to Yuma, Arizona, where she'll meet with medical technicians and local officials. But guys, all of those meetings are closed to the press. Dan?
Tara Palmieri at the White House. Tara, thank you. Let's go to Texas now and bring in our chief political analyst, Matthew Dowd. Matthew, good morning. Let's start with the president threatening to shut down the entire southern border. Do you see that as a real threat or a negotiating tactic or maybe a message to his base? What do you think's going on with that?
Well, I don't think it's a real threat. First of all, many treaties. This would be a violation of many treaties for him to do something like that. It would be a violation of the new NAFTA agreement that he signed, and it would actually be a violation of much of the law of the United States about restricting legal immigration that is in the book. So I don't think it's a realistic threat. The other part of the threat is actually wouldn't hurt Mexico as much as it would hurt the United States because of the economy that we share and what we benefit from that. I actually think the main part of this is it's a signal to his base saying, I'm standing tall, I'm standing firm, I'm going to do whatever it takes. But it's not realistic that he would shut the border down. This horrible murder of the police officer in California, we've all seen the picture of him posing with his wife and 5-month-old child but hours before he was shot. The president has been pointing to this case as he argues for his border wall. Is that not potentially a powerful line of argument politically? It's incredibly powerful. Obviously, this is horribly tragic, as you mentioned, and what's happened to his family, what happened to this man and everybody involved in this. I don't think, though, appealing to people's fears in these ways, in these anecdotal ways, has actually benefited Donald Trump. He tried this in the midterm elections with various points in time, running on the wall, doing all that, and he lost the midterms badly. And so in the short term, I think it's incredibly emotional, incredibly tragic, and it's incredibly powerful. But making long-term public policy, I don't think it's helpful in that regard. Back to the shutdown for a second. No matter who, quote-unquote, wins here, is it possible that the president is playing a smart, long game in terms of portraying the Democrats as soft on border security, a point that he's just hammering and hammering and hammering? Well, we know in the short term right now it's not benefiting the president. Most of the Americans blame the shutdown on the president. And I think when you look back at 1995 and 1996, when that started, they blamed the Republicans in that, and it never got better for the Republicans. So I think in the long term, it doesn't benefit the president. What I think happens if this goes on, and we could see a record shutdown. I think the last record was 21 days long of a shutdown. We could pass that record. I think it's going to be a pox on everybody. I think at some point in time, the public's going to say, come on, show some leadership, Democrats and Republicans in Washington. But for now, I think it hurts the president, and he has actually claimed credit for the shutdown. So in the end, I think this isn't beneficial for the president, and it's definitely not beneficial for the American public.
And we've got a new House Speaker coming in next week. We'll see if that moves the ball forward in any meaningful way. Matthew Dowd from Texas this morning. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.